And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with the last talk of regular footy when it comes to it. I know we're midway through the supporter series. I have, as several of you have known, I've had some absolutely fantastic conversations, but we just got through the draft. And in AFLW, we've gotten through the trade period. We got to talk it. We got to talk everything, the moves, the changes, who has, who hasn't moved, all that. And joining me, as per usual, the man, the myth, the legend that is Rookie Me Central head editor, Mr. Pete Williams. Pete, it is great to see you again, sir. The last time we are going to talk again, twice in 1 month, always fun, but some interesting things that we have to discuss with the trade period and the draft for the AFLW.
Yeah, absolutely, Donny. Great to be back, and of course, yeah, like it's been a pretty busy time because, unlike with the men's, where obviously the trade period sort of off season drags on a little bit, the women's is basically done within a couple of weeks. You got a week for trade period, and then the draft, and you over. So, very quick turnaround. Players move clubs pretty frantically, as we'll discuss, and then of course they're straight onto the draft. So, very exciting time, and yeah, as you said, lots to talk about.
So let's hop right into it. We will start with the first part of that section, and that is the trade period. And boy, oh boy, we were sitting here talking just before we turned on the mics, and wow, what a trade period because man, it was fast, it was furious. And this was the first year that not only did we have a deadline day show to watch, but man, all of the list managers were in the same place. And boy, was that entertaining watching Riley Brevich running around like a chook with his head cut off, trying to find out who was and wasn't getting moved. Your thoughts on the deadline coverage? Because I thought it was fascinating, even at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, no, it was quite interesting. Obviously, they kind of set up the I guess trades. They try and make sure that there's a few left for deadline to make it good television. So I reckon there's always a few that they've got done maybe an hour or two earlier, and they're just like, hang on, hold up till the end because we don't want to be sitting there for the last hour and nothing's done.
Hmm.
And then of course there are those that sort of go right down to the wire and they're frantically trying to get them, which is interesting. And yeah, there was as much about what wasn't done as there was
Hmm.
which was done realistically. Obviously, Western Turner being the main one, but there's a few that were touted that never happened, and it's just interesting to see which clubs are able to get it done, which can't meet, and yeah, and then what happens from there. So it definitely added a bit of extra spark to everything, and I think it also suits when they literally have less time to do trades in the women's.
Hmm.
Like obviously in the men's, a deadline day, even though it happens, is you've been doing it for like 3 weeks. Like, come on.
Hmm.
Where for the women's, they literally haven't had much time. So
Yep.
yeah, it makes sense.
I kind of appreciate. I kind of like how the women's handle it. In fact, there's a lot of things about how the women's thing is set up. I like the compensation, the trade period. I also like how they do the draft with the picks. I actually think it would uncomplicate a lot of things if they actually went to that. But again, that's just me. But let's go through some of the usuals that we do when we talk trade. I'm interested on this one. What move or trade do you think is going to make the biggest impact for their team this year? Because I think there's a couple
Mm.
that I think could be key pieces going into next season.
Yeah, I think there are a few, and obviously the key forwards is probably where you like to start. Eden Zanker to Fremantle is clearly huge. They've had a few injuries in the past. They've kind of lacked that target inside 50 due to injury. Obviously, Ain Tai having her injury issues, and Fremantle just trying to experiment with a few different players. Obviously, Georgie Brisbane's incredibly talented, but she's that little bit undersized where Zanker gives them that height, that target. So she's going to be fantastic. Obviously, Taylor Smith as well to Sydney, I think, gives you another target inside 50. So that's really good. And it's hard not to say Anne Hatchard to Gold Coast, really, because they've basically been the kids and Charlie Rowbottom, really, and she's still young herself. And I think she just adds that extra layer of experience. And I think that'll also help the development because with what she offers to bring in, I think that's really crucial. And her replacement too in Grace Egan is the fourth one I'll chuck in because I think that she
Mhm.
meets a perfect need. And a little bit surprised Richmond were happy to sort of let her go for what they did, but at the end of the day, she fits into Adelaide and will slot straight back into that, I guess, Hatchard spot, and it frees up a few others too, which
Mhm.
helps. So I think those four were the four for me that really stood out in terms of what could be going forward.
Yeah. I think I'll also say this, and I quietly love what Carlton did. I quietly love what Carlton did. Claudia Whitford and Brooke Bulio both come in. The only one I'm not 100% sure on and how they're going to pull this off is Lauren Bella. Because what's up with Jess Good? What's up with Brianne Harrington? What's up with Celine Moody? Like, they've got a plethora of tall players. How are they going to work that out? But I think Claudia Whitford comes in. I think that's a fantastic addition. Brooke Bolio comes in. I think that's another fantastic. They were already pretty good. They're young, they're talented. And you add those three pieces, I think it's fantastic. I think, like I said, Carlton is quietly they're not the flashy, the Taylor Smith for Sydney. I agree with you. The Eden Zankus, the big names that I think these are solid, really good pieces for an already good team that didn't lose much over the off season. I know they had a little bit of the drama with the Karen Peterson delisting, and I know some people in the W space are a little miffed about that. And again, I'm not going to go into that because I don't think it's my space in this particular time period, but I'm quietly loving what Carlton did on that. Grace Egan, I agree with you. I just think she needed a new place. I just think it just wasn't working at Richmond. I think what she was had kind of disappeared a little bit in her years there. So I think the change of scenery, the change of state, I think actually be really good for them. I think it brings in another one. It kind of lets Ebony Marinoff be the man in the middle and then gives you that defensive helper with Grace Egan. So I think that's actually no, I'm 100% with you. I'll go to the next one. Was there a trade that surprised you? I know I think Ann Hatchard surprised a lot of people just because it wasn't one that we were hearing a lot of, and it just kind of it kept getting more momentum and kept getting, and then it finally, and when it happened, I think everybody went, "Wait, I thought Gold Coast was cashing in on the kids this year, not bringing in this veteran." So it's a little bit of a surprising move for me personally.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a shock. I don't think anyone saw it coming till it sort of was touted. And again, the quick turnaround, it was like the season had ended, trade period had just started, and then suddenly it was like she's open to moving. And usually in the women's space, when that happens, it means they're definitely moving. So,
Hmm.
um, and it seemed to go through really, really quickly because obviously Gold Coast wanted to get their picks or shuffle their picks around. They could get out next year's because they don't quite have the same academy crop they do this year. So they're able to basically trade them out, give something Adelaide wants. They're able to trade back. And Gold Coast, it was sort of like one of the earlier selections after the Richmond trade where they just sort of kept trading back, trading back, trading back to be able
Hmm.
to accumulate those picks. So that was definitely a surprise. The other one for me was Lucas Rod to GWS. I think that was the
Yeah.
one that really caught me off guard. Obviously, inaugural captain of the Hawks. Had a really good, so like she's been really consistent, really good in that
Hmm.
defensive half. So I think it sort of came out of nowhere. But I think the Hawks, and we'll see this more and more, where they sort of identify that in the future they've got players that might be able to slot into a certain role, and
Hmm.
rather than wait for that player to take over, they trade out one of their better players for high value. So then that way they can kind of be like, cool, we got these in, we know we're going to get it, rather than wait a year or two and say,
Hmm.
value diminishes, a young kid comes in and plays, and suddenly she's worth a late pick type thing or something like that.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if they, like, we would have kept her, but we realize her value is high now. We've got
Hmm.
players in that role. We're going to trade into next year's draft and be able to stockpile a bit there, and then they're all set. So I think
Yeah.
that was the real reason. And they're just like, we know her value is really, really high, and in 12 months' time, it may not be as high. So
Yeah.
let's get her out now and then be able to regenerate that way, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. I like it for GWS because it brings them another veteran presence, and I think it just the one thing that they were a little rudderless after Elise Parker got injured, and then they kind of had some issues with just some leadership. I think they kind of started stabilized a little bit through the center part of the season, but again, this has been their issue is where Elise Parker goes, so goes the GWS Giants. So having Tilly come in, I think is fantastic, and this is a really good sign for New South Wales football and Sydney football as well because this is a marquee caliber player, a top player in the competition, wants to come to GWS. She nominated GWS as her trade destination. So I think we're starting to see the change in it that it's not just about location anymore. You're starting to see the eventual, I think, evening out of this competition, which I think is fantastic. Another one, shock, but I think is great for the competition again is Zoe Prouse moving to Essendon because Essendon was absolutely obliterated with injury this year. And to get a top caliber player from the Adelaide Crows over, again, another one to nominate Essendon to go to there, I think is nothing but a good thing for this competition when it comes to it. Is the spreading out of talent. I think this is nothing but a good thing. Again, North Melbourne is on a pedestal. When that dynasty will end, we'll have to see. But man, it's good to see some superstar talented players moving to teams that really are desperate for another superstar talent to be in there. So, 100% with you. Let's have our Homer moments. I'll go to you, sir, as the Collingwood man that you are. Your thoughts on Collingwood's trade deadline because a few shockers. Michaela Can finds her way over to the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think it's a case of knowing when their value's there because I mean I'm not saying anything shocking. There aren't too many Collingwood players that would have high value that would be able to bring in picks. We wanted to attack the draft essentially, and we needed to bring in some players or trade out some players that we could bring in um, higher picks, and we were able to do that. Pick up a few in the second round as well as a couple in the first, but we were able to do that and for me, I think her going to Bulldogs, like, good on her. She's given everything she can. And I think it's good because I don't think there's too much more she can achieve at Collingwood. I think that she can really help the Dogs out around that midfield group. I think she adds the extra experience where for Collingwood, let's be honest, the one part of the ground they probably have always had really good strength in is the inside midfield. Like we haven't had Bree Davy all year, so well, really 2 seasons. So I mean, she comes back in. You've got Britt Benici already in there. You're trying to bring in some kids. At the end of the day, it's like one of these things that we're covered in that position. And not many others, but certainly that position we're covered in. So I think that's probably again the trading out, getting picks in, get high value for them, and the other thing to keep in mind, obviously, is Tassie's on the horizon. So you're going to want to get in some young talent before you get to Tassie coming in and suddenly the cliff staring there, and particularly for a club like Collingwood that hasn't had any success. So it's not like they're a North where if they fall off a cliff, you've got the flags in the bank. Like they haven't had that. So I think for them, it's just a case of trying to trade out some players with value and bring some in. And we saw that with a lot of probably tough delistings. They delisted a third of their list. Let's be honest. Like
Hmm.
they had 9 outs, so they had plenty of change, and I think they needed it really. And they've been able to bring in a bunch of players that can fill roles. We strengthened up the defense, brought in some cross code rookies. Obviously,
Yep.
Nankervel's played before with Adelaide, so she does have that experience. But they just filled a few needs, and I think they've sort of been able to get those players in for basically nothing. All those players are just contracts rather than giving anything up. And then they went to the draft, which was really good. So they essentially traded out Can, got in some picks, and were able to bring in a lot of players to replace them. And hopefully, it can be the start of something that improves for the club.
The biggest thing is we hope Bree Davies can get healthy. That's the other
Mm.
thing. And that's nothing to do with trade or anything. You got to get Bree Davy healthy. If you could get her healthy, I think that would really, really help. I think seeing Kalinda Howarth get a little bit more healthy and have a little bit more consistency in her footy, I think is a good thing. I think you're revamping on the run. And I completely get that. When it comes to Sydney with me, I mean, I kind of knew. I think there wasn't much surprise in this. Taylor Smith nominated. That was the only thing that they were going to do because the biggest thing that Sydney wanted to do is to keep as strong a draft hand as they could because they knew they had two or three up there potential draft picks, which we'll discuss that a little bit more when it comes to the fun of the first round was quite the entertaining first round when it comes to it. But I like the move. Beck Privatelli retires. You need a new kind of spearhead, and Taylor Smith comes in. She's experienced. She's got that ability to score. And then there's I think it just help open up. It maybe takes a little bit of pressure off Chloe Malloy as long as they can get her healthy. I think that's nothing but a good thing. So it wasn't much, but I think it was exactly what Sydney needed. They needed that key forward to be the top of to be at the top of the square, leading out hopefully to some good delivery from some of those young midfielders that Sydney has. So let's go to it. Your expertise is this draft. I cannot wait to discuss this because this was a draft that I 100% agree. There were a few things we knew. We knew Gold Coast was going to bid and have several players in the top. But man, was this fun because I know that I think the number one overall pick at Richmond, I think there was about four different girls that were going, they were rotating through and who they thought they were going to draft, including I know you tweeted out at one time that the Northern Knights utility forward Scarlett Johnson was going to be, but on draft night, we saw another name come out as Olivia Wolmarans is the number one pick by Richmond. Did this surprise you a little bit, and did they get it right, or is this a player that you think Richmond needed?
Yeah, I think it was more what they needed. It's very interesting how it all came about because, yeah, I'm still a bit shocked that it didn't go to Johnson because I'm not, as you know, I'm not someone who posts much rumors or anything unless I'm basically 100% certain. And I
Hmm.
can tell you that was as close to 100% certain as I could think because, I mean, I've already told Richmond about it, but it was an immediate family member essentially that
Hmm.
told me that they're not going. Like it was more to do with Chloe Bown saying, because everyone was saying about Chloe Bown going pick one and all
Hmm.
that. And yeah, essentially a family member said, hey, just so you know, they're not picking her, they're picking Scarlett Johnson type thing.
Hmm.
So it's one of those things that you're like, well, that's pretty damn close. And I had a chat to Richmond list manager on the night, and he enjoyed it. To be honest, he said you certainly rattled a few cages with that because I think a lot of people were expecting Bown at that time. So as soon
Hmm.
as Johnson's name got raised, I think a few were suddenly ringing up, being like, "What's going on?" Because of course, trade week by that stage was done.
Hmm.
So a lot of players who, like a lot of clubs, I think had assumed they were going Bown or along those lines. So
Hmm.
they kind of were just okay, whatever, we're not going to get them. But then they've realised, oh, hang on, what's going on here? And yeah, so it was quite an interesting build up. But yeah, like full credit to Richmond, they're still meeting with them. They opted to go with the key forward. Obviously, she really impressed them, and she is very unique. A lot of the other key forwards were obviously tied to clubs between Gold Coast and Sydney, and I think that she fits a really good need because they did struggle up forward. Like Katie Brennan
Hmm.
can't do it all for forever. They really needed a target. They got Monique Conti in the midfield, so you're pretty much solid there, and Ali McKenzie. So I think it's not a case of them winning the midfield. I think it's a case of them trying to score,
Hmm.
and Warmer certainly provides that. So I think that's a great selection for them. They really couldn't have lost. Like they're picking on high upside as well as what they're
Yeah.
capable of doing. So Johnson would have been a great pick. Bound would have been a great pick. It's one of those things. I think Warmer's is probably the one that maybe Richmond fans would be the most happy with in terms of filling a need.
Hmm.
And they identified that, hey, we've got a pick. There's a clear need here at that top end. Let's just go for the need, and she can slot in and be our 10-year key forward and be a target that we really really need. So it was a great call. Really like that. And yeah, like I think she's definitely deserving of it. There was a host that would be deserving of it. So
Hmm.
it certainly helped shape the early picks as well. So obviously with those players I mentioned going not long after. So
Yeah, and then Scarlett Johnson then goes to GWS, and then as you and I had kind of talked about personally, and we'll kind of pull the curtain away here a little bit, is you had messaged me saying you had heard rumors the GWS was going to play a little hardball with the Swans because of their three, what many people say is the three that everybody was talking about: Kiara Yerbury, Alex Nayland, and Maddie Quinn and Molly Quinn and Maddie Quinn. Um, and you had told me, you said you were pretty sure that GWS was going to bid on one and then hope the Swans matched it and then be able to snatch another. But it went a little bit different way. So was this a little bit of a shocker that after Scarlett Johansson, Kira Yerbury gets bid on and the Swans let her go?
yeah, that's literally it was. It went as I sort of expected. It was just the other way, because I think they wanted one of Neeland or Newbury, and they bid on Newbury, trying to force the Swans' hand to see whether they were going to match Newbury and then take Nayland. But I would say every other club, like with respect to Newbury, who's a first rounder in her own right,
Hmm.
Nayland was like top 10 in every club's thinking, I would imagine, if not top five. So certainly you don't let a player of that caliber go. So as much as they wanted to take Yearbury, and no doubt they would have loved to, they just had to be like, sorry, like that, Nayland doesn't come around too often. And it kind of give you the hint too, because like Yearbury obviously was wearing a North Shore top where at draft night, where
Hmm.
Nayland was
I
wearing a
noticed that
Swans
too.
Academy top.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I noticed that too.
now that could well have been because Nayland comes from Cardiff Hawks, so maybe they don't have the same kind of polo. I'm not sure. It's obviously on the coast, but I would say that the optics of Yebury wearing a Swans top while getting a GWS one would not have been as good as her just wearing a Bombers top
Hmm.
for a local club. So that was quite an interesting note. So I think once I'd seen that, it kind of confirmed to me what was happening there. But yeah, they would. I can guarantee the next bid would have been on Nayland had the Swans matched
Matched
Yearbury.
it. Yep.
So um, there was some word that they were going to bid on Nayland first and then go for Yearbury. But I think that the Nayland match would have been a very easy match. So
Hmm.
I think they baited them into trying to match on Yearbury and then be like, will we bid for Nayland or not? Will we not? And then at the end, but the problem was that the Swans knew all these other clubs were interested in Nayland. So
Hmm.
even if they matched it and the Giants didn't bid, then, Collingwood, for example, when they did bid on Nayland, would have bid and they wouldn't have been able to match. So I think
Yep.
they knew at the end of the day, they just had to go with the one they were after, like at the top. So
Yep.
I think that, yeah, like at the end of the day, Yebury went higher, but than what anyone would have expected. But like she has that talent and she's a
Hmm.
local kid, and which is what the Giants put a priority on. Obviously, they picked Johnson as well, but yeah, Yebury's a local kid. She doesn't have the go home factor. And anytime I guess either of your clubs can get up one up on the other, it'll be interesting. Which yeah, sets up for next year's draft really well because both have some really good academy talents. So could
Hmm.
be a really fascinating sequel next year.
Or could the Swans be chuckling because they let Yerbury get through a rookie contract and then they shift her over after she's developed at GWS. Again, I'm not poking. I also thought that there was an academy girl that originally we went to to GWS. Oh, I'm totally brain farting here. And she never did even make an attempt to try to go to this one. So never know. But I thought it was interesting when we were going back and forth. I was like, I kind of gather that Sydney is higher on Nayland than Yerbury. So I think
Mm.
when I heard her name, I was like, yep. I said the Swans are going to let her go, and I just kind of felt.
Yeah.
And then same thing. I saw the top too, and I'm like, yep. I said I bet you she probably might have even known a little bit that might have been the case on that one. So we'll shift to the next bid, and that's Sunny Lappin. I mean, this was a no-brainer here. I mean, Gold Coast was not matching Sunny Lappin here, but another fantastic story here. Another of the Gold Coast, the haul that they end up getting. We can discuss that just as we go on a little bit, but I mean, this is a fantastic get for the Suns.
Yeah, it was. I think a lot of people up there thought she was Carlton bound. She supported the club. Obviously, her dad. Like there are a lot of things moving in motion that she was going to go to Carlton. Is what a lot of people, not her, but a lot of people outside of that were assuming. And then it sort of came out of the blue that she'd gone with the Suns and wanted to stay home. Obviously, already in that state, which is great. Yeah, like she just added to the already talented depth they have in that top end. And no doubt great for the Suns. But then, of course, what they had to do was they had to go and, um, start accumulating even another pick and trying to work all that stuff out. So, but yeah, she's really skillful, came on in leaps and bounds and wasn't a part of the National Academy, which was bizarre to say the least when it came out. Like she was clearly top 25 to start the year and then didn't make the academy. But yeah, clearly she's shown beyond a shadow of a doubt that she deserved to be there. And there are quite a few in that top end that weren't in the academy originally, like Johnson, Yearbury, and Lappin. Were none of those three were in the academy, so it kind of shows some of the, I guess, bolting that some players have done, and just following up from their bottom age years. So she'll add some serious skill and smarts around the ball. Really, really good inside outside. Still light, but she'll probably play off a wing or a flank and really impress.
Yep. No, I mean, and let's open up the 10 here because I mean, Sunny Lappin was just the first of many because then you get Ava Usher goes at 7, and we'll discuss in a little bit. Georgia Davis is been on and matched at 9. Alana Welsh at 12. Michaela Nurse at 13. And then Dakota Barron at 15. And I've even heard some people say Dakota Barron going at 15. I mean, it's a steal for Gold Coast. And again, Gold Coast is they match the bids. But I mean, just that there. What an incredible haul for this team that again, they kind of had to mortgage it. Whitford, Bella, Lauren Bella, Jack DePie all find their way out. But what a great youth group that they have coming in that have been playing some really good footy together for so long.
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to be tricky to try and come up with something that I guess they could do. But like, I mean, at the end of the day, it was such a great haul that they were able to bring in, like of all positions too. Like we obviously saw that some of the later picks and then some that miss out that will maybe make it onto lists in the future. But yeah, for that top group, particularly that first rounders, it just shows the development within the academy. And I think credit has to go to all the development coaches, really, particularly Mark Browning, who's done a fantastic job up in Queensland and really developing all those kids and yeah, being able to get to the point where boys and girls have so many first rounders, and it doesn't just happen. The talent doesn't just happen overnight. I think that's the other thing you got to keep in mind is the fact that it's not like they just suddenly become good without any work. Like end of the day, they've done the work. They deserve to be where they are. So yeah, I think the development staff can sometimes get a bit left out in terms of the work they do, and same with local clubs too. Like as you'd see, other than Usher, like the rest were all Southport. So I think that you've got to give a bit of credit to them, and obviously they're the clubs before Southport as well. So
Mhm.
I think from a Suns perspective, this just has to be the turning point because there's just too much talent on that list now, and I mean it's probably not really out there to say that on talent alone, they probably have the most talented list. It's just they're so young.
Mhm.
So when they develop, yeah, I think it's going to be watch out because there's so much potential on this list that I think a lot of clubs are going to be in a lot of trouble in the future when they take on Gold Coast, really.
Yeah, I'm in reality, I don't think that they're going to see this astronomical jump into the finals and be a contending team next year. Nope, they're going to get there. They're going to take their lumps. They're going to have some growing pains, and that's the biggest thing. But in 2, 3 years, when these young ladies are 20 years old, they're a little bit more mature. They've had some professional years of training underneath them. Watch out. This could be a Gold Coast team that could be scary because I want to go to it because I know last year when we had discussed Ava Usher was, I mean, she was everybody's top pick. She was out of this world,
Mm.
just all the plaudits, everything like that. She goes at 7. I mean, I'm happy for her because I know she's dealt with a lot. I know that she was very emotional on draft night because of all the things she's had to go through. But I mean, this is an incredibly talented young woman who could be one of the best in the competition very, very soon.
Oh yeah, if she stays fit, she will be like she she's just incredible, really. Like it's there's nothing you can really knock on her game. Like she's got elite athleticism, great skills, like able to run through the midfield. She could probably play pretty much anywhere, but her endurance, speed, strength, competitiveness, ball winning, just the whole lot. Like she's literally got the complete package. And yeah, for her to go at pick 7, obviously we know she's missed a couple of years, been injured, but make no mistake, if she was fit and in the open draft, I'd be stunned if she didn't go pick 1. So
Hmm.
obviously the bidding's always a bit, it doesn't really matter because when they've got the picks to match, it didn't matter what order they went in or when they went, they were always going to go there. So I think a lot of clubs erred on the side of caution and just kind of went with the player that they could award their jumper to rather than
Hmm.
just bid. So I think that's what happens where like obviously if she was available in an open draft, there's no way on this earth she goes to pick 7. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think she's going to be an absolute elite player, and I really hope she does get back and is able to really perform to her best. Because seeing her at 16, it was out of this world some of the stuff she could do, and yeah, like she genuinely, like I never compare them, but she could genuinely be one of those that could compete in a men's game with the ability she has. She is small, but her skills, her smarts, her athleticism, she can kick 50 plus. Yeah, I just remember kicking it um, from 50 off a step and just sailed home. Like it was just like ridiculous highlights. Like some of the stuff she could do is just out of this world for her age. Like yeah, it was just miles above anyone else. And I mean, there's a lot of talented players, but it was just like, wow, this kid is going to
Mhm.
be box office. And yeah, I think that she's going to be someone who, yeah, stays fit. Just wow, she's going to be the name on everyone's lips, really. So, and a lot of clubs were trying to convince her to go open draft, and then that would have been even more fascinating because the bidding to get pick one would have been even more fierce. I reckon every club would have been trying to get it. So yeah.
Yep. No, wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, hopefully we wish her we will touch wood that she is healthy, and hopefully we see the best of Ava Usher. Which I actually want to go to the I want to go to the next pick because I saw this young lady play a lot, and she's going to your beloved Pies. I mean, how good is this pickup of Imogen Trengo from Woodville West Torrens to the Collingwood Magpies? Because I think this brings some more depth, but an incredibly talented young lady coming over to the Magpies.
Yeah, I really like her. She's one of those that probably is in between our first and second pick in terms of where she would go. But we rated her that highly. We're like, well, we're not going to run the risk of an Adelaide or someone picking her up before our second pick. So we'll
Hmm.
just pounce on her now, bring her in. And I sort of figured that was going to be who we were going to pick up because when I was sort of speaking to Collingwood, they said we're looking for players that are going to fit into our system. And our system is obviously team defense, being able to run backward, behind the play and have great athleticism, great endurance. And I'm just looking at all these boxes going, yep, she ticks that, ticks that, ticks that. And at the end of the day, when they described all the things they're kind of looking for, I went, well, that's just Imogen Trengove in a
Hmm.
nutshell. Like she basically covered every box they were looking for. So for me, I'm like, yep, we're probably definitely going to pick her up. And then she got the later invite to the draft. I went, all right, well, that's guaranteed it. So, um, yeah, look, she's a really good kid. One that I remember seeing for the first time at the end of her bottom age year, thinking, gee, this kid's got something about her. And she was able to really show it throughout that year. And to start her top age year, she's played all three lines, took her game to another level. And yeah, she's got a really unique running pattern in the sense that when she wins it on the wing, she'll kick it a half forward. And then in the blink of an eye, somehow she's in the forward pocket waiting to receive the ball again. So her speed and endurance as a combination is very, very rare. So, yeah, she's a great kid too, really down to earth, had to move from the York Peninsula, already used to relocating. Future leader, and even though she's only obviously 18, she's going to drive some serious standards, which I think is going to be the theme for a lot of the kids that have come in. They're really competitive. They're wanting to get better. They're wanting to drive these standards, and she's going to be the forefront of that. And she's definitely like she's a future captain in the making. You can just tell from the way she operates, the way she speaks. She obviously led South Australia this year. Like, yeah, she's got a really good, I guess, off-field persona as well as her on-field one. So
Hmm.
she's going to be really good. I think she'll come straight in, play round one, and she can play on all three lines, which always helps as well.
Yeah, I loved what she did in Woodville West Torrens. I know I go back and forth with Narelle Smith, their coach, and she could not stop raving about how good Evie has been. And again, that Woodville West Torrens team is so good this last year. Just got pipped in that Sanford W Grand Final. Cannot wait to see how things go. But I want to move to another one who I mean, draft night, they wax lyrical about her, and more because she slipped down and she probably shouldn't have, but some injury issues, and that's Geelong's first pick at Evie Coucher, the Peel defender. I mean, this is another one. This is a steal for Geelong. The Cats women's are starting to do like the men. They find these hidden gems, and they find, and I cannot wait to see Evie play for the Cats down in Geelong.
Yeah, I mean, on value and the I guess lack of intercepting key defenders that aren't tied to an academy, as we sort of said, the same with Wolmerin's. Like she probably should have gone higher. She had interest from Collingwood and Essendon and whatnot. And I think at the end of the day, like Collingwood obviously got Newith in the 40s, so I think they thought they could get her. back then, so they opted for Trengove. And I think Couch is one of those kids that is obviously ready made. Like she's been playing seniors. I remember first seeing her, oh, she was probably only 14 or something like that. And I remember talking to the then Peel Thunder coach and said to him, who on earth is that kid? Because I was there to watch the seniors, and there was a Rogers Cup game on, and I'm seeing this kid intercept everything and then hit targets. I'm like, who on earth is that kid and why is she not playing seniors? And he goes, that's Evie Coucher. She's not eligible yet, but she will be next year, and she's playing round one. So yeah, she for a long time she looked like a very very good player. She's obviously won a couple of MVPs. This year she had the back stress fractures, which really derailed her season, which is a shame. I think probably that and the fact that she's a bit more quiet compared to a lot of the other kids. Like obviously I speak to all the kids, but she's one of those that's very quiet. Like once she gets to know people, she's a bit more talkative, but she's mostly keeps to herself. Like some of the other kids, like for example Tringo, who we just spoke about, very outgoing, happy to chat, all that kind of stuff. Where Coucher sort of will just be there a bit reserved, not really a huge talker. So I think in women's too, like sometimes some clubs don't always go for the quieter ones. I think that's also a little reason why she might have slid. But I think for Geelong, like they think they can get the best out of her. They've obviously got, I think their draft haul was really, really good too. But I think she's a really good inclusion. She fits a need because their defense at times looked a little bit shaky. They got a really good one, but it's young. And we obviously know with, Meg McDonald sort of in and out of the side, then retiring, like they needed to regenerate it a little bit. And obviously new coach too. Yeah, I think she's going to add something different. And as I said, she'll be a round one player. She's ready made to go. If she's fit, she'll play. Been playing seniors for many years. So she's ready to go.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for her. I think she was fantastic to watch appeal. Cannot wait to see her on that. And another one that I heard a lot to talk about. We can even talk about her sister too. Is Mizuki Brothwell, the Western Bulldogs pick at 14. I know there was some talk. She was a little bit of a bolter, came out of a little bit of nowhere. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, she was a little bit higher than I thought. I thought maybe towards the late end of the first round was going to be sort of that top pick. But again, like the Bulldogs didn't have another selection till 45, so there was no way she was going to be there. So and with Coucher off the board, it meant that, one less uh, intercepting defender was there. So I think they sort of just pounced and went, yep, this is who we want. We need this need. And she's got a lot of upside. Like 2 years ago, not many would have even had her anywhere near it. But the last 2 years she's had for the Stingrays have been getting better and better. And obviously, National Academy member, really consistent, good kick, competes well in the air. Like she's someone who can just slot straight in. And yeah, I think she's got a lot of talent that can continue to improve because she certainly came out of nowhere. I think it was 3 years ago, she decided to pick up a footy, play local, played a couple of games, and then was straight into the Stingrays. So certainly real full credit to her and her sister, obviously, who went to Essendon, which is the club they both supported growing up. So Nalu, perhaps a touch more raw, but at times they sort of rotated between who was performing better. Like Nalu's a little bit stronger in the air, not quite as consistent with her kicking, but she's very smart, got good vision. So that it's one of those things that I think she's also a couple of centimeters smaller. So I think that's why she went a bit later. But she'll again add an extra element to Essendon's front half. So I think she's another one with lots of improvement to come.
Yeah, no, it'll be quite interesting. And then I want to talk about this young lady because she absolutely was one of my favorites out of WA, and that is Mia Russo. The West Coast Eagles keep a local talent at home. The West Perth superstar. And this is an incredible pickup for Daisy Pierce because she was incredible for West Perth and the Waffle W.
Oh yeah, Russo's just an absolute steal. Like at the end of the day, she's like I did hear rumors that she was going to slide to the 20s, and obviously she went to 20. And it's actually public knowledge now, so it doesn't really matter too much that West Coast weren't that keen to pick her up with their first pick. And she actually came out obviously through Eliza Riley. She told the story of where West Coast wanted to get her back in 2 years. They wanted to pick someone else with pick 20 and they wanted to get her back in 2 years. And she goes, well, I want to be a one club player. So the ball's in your court. So she's like, if you want me to play for you, you pick me. So, which is
Love it.
very, very unique. She obviously had her interests and things like that. But yeah, I think a lot of people out west were a bit surprised because at the end of the day, they thought, no, West Coast aren't going to pick her. And then they did because they obviously heeded her warning and said, well, we want her long term. So we're going to pick her up. So it's a great thing for her. And yeah, that's just a steal. Like this is the thing. I think she's had like arthritis basically throughout her life, and she manages it so well. And she's a full credit to her. One of the nicest kids you'll come across. Genuinely a great kid, and I think for her to be able to stay home too. Like she obviously wouldn't have had a problem going into state. She's not one that'll be a worry in that regard, but to be able to stay home and already be a part of that system is great. And I think for West Perth, they're definitely going to be pretty happy because it means the few games she can play in the Waffle W, if that happens with the AFLW players, then they get to keep her, which is
Hmm.
very, very good because they were, expecting her to go, obviously. But yeah, the fact she went to 20 was a bit ridiculous. She should have been pushing for top 10, or at least the early teens. So yeah, that's definitely a steal for West Coast.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then I want to talk about this and more because this was such a cool story for me because I watched the draft coverage and the last player picked up in the green in the room was Priya Bowering, the Tassie girl who goes to Geelong. And this is not only a cool story because I mean everybody saw her grandfather and how emotional he was. That was fantastic. But I mean, this is one of those where there are rumors going around, and you can tell me how efficient it is. There's a lot of people a little concerned about Tassie with the Tassie women coming in soon. Is how many of these Tassie girls really want to go to the mainland or eventually want to go home and play for the Tassie girls when their license comes through?
Yeah, and to be honest, on draft night, I said to someone that can be the only reason she is still left
Hmm.
because pick 27 is absolutely bonkers for a player of her ability. And that's why, like, I have Geelong as one of the best sort of drafts because they got Coucher, they got Bowering for ridiculous value. And yeah, maybe there are those questions of being like, do they go home? Don't they? Like, this kind of thing,
Yeah.
picking players from interstate and things like that. But at the end of the day, they back their systems. So,
Yeah.
and that's got to be a full credit to Geelong. They go, hey, because I remember when they picked up even Georgie Prasparkas, where they all said, oh, well, she'll go join Maddie and whatnot, and they didn't care. They went, no, we're going to pick her up anyway. So, like, they backed her in, and now you look, she's signing long term deals. So,
Yeah.
full credit to Geelong. They took the risk. They went, you know what? We're going to take her. We're going to back them in. And yeah, Bowering's just a remarkable talent. Like, yeah, she's deceptively athletic. She knows she's got to improve it on the field, but testing wise, she's incredible. So I think that, along with her, she kicks it well. She's strong in the air, can play multiple positions, even though she's predominantly a midfielder. So yeah, she's just a fantastic kid. Like, honestly, another one. Like, a lot of them are, but she's just a genuine, really good kid. So yeah, full credit to Geelong, absolute steal.
Yeah, they kept waxing lyrical and then they kept showing her grandfather. And I just thought that was one of the cool stories. I wanted to be able to highlight her. Another one that I've seen a lot of and really, really, really enjoyed. I've heard her being wax lyrical from a few personal people who've worked with her, and that's Fremantle at 35. Charlie Hazelhurst, the Norwood utility. A fantastic pickup for Fremantle.
Yeah, and I think I know who you're talking about because the Farrell family
Yep.
absolutely love her.
Oh yeah.
Brad at the start of the year, when I spoke to him, said to me that she might be the first South Australian picked and can do anything and all that. So I think they're definitely her number one fans, and rightly so. Like, they're fantastic.
But
Like,
she backs it.
she's
She
just
backs it up too. I've watched her Norwood game. She was fantastic for Norwood this year.
Yeah, no, she's one of those, I guess, we call unicorns. She
Hmm.
can kind of play every position, all lines. Super athletic. Yeah, she's really a blank canvas. She can kind of do whatever you want. Like, she can develop into whatever they want. Obviously, rebounding halfback, I think, is where most people sort of see her. But she can play that forward role. She can play midfield. She's even done a bit of ruck, though probably a little undersized for that, but Yeah, I think she probably settles at half back and uses that run and carry and things like that. So in the end, I think she went roughly where I thought she would, sort of in that second round. She's got a lot of potential upside, maybe not quite the runs on the board that some of the others that obviously went higher do,
Mhm.
but she's also been juggling her footy and netball. So yeah, she's a great talent. I think she's one that, in terms of what she's got left to develop, she's got a fair bit. So she's definitely up there with those with the most development left. And yeah, full credit to Norwood. They've been able to blood her and be able to put faith in her to play various roles. And yeah, she's definitely deserving of the spot and should do well out west. And yeah, Fremantle weren't afraid to do that, which was good.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And then I'm gonna bring it up because we didn't bring it up during the trade period, so I'm gonna bring it up now. Pick 37, the double hyphen Christy Lee Western Turner. As the draft expert that you are, and this young lady went number one in her draft pick, but I've kind of heard this topic being brought up a lot. I mean, are we actually seeing where Christy Lee Western Turner probably should have been? Because again, she was one of the last drafts that was state based. So
Mm.
there was a lot of there's a lot of different discussions on this, and I know there was the argument that they couldn't get the trade done, and she didn't want to give any of her medicals, so she would guarantee that she would go to North again. I'm not going to address that drama on that one because men's players have done it, the women's players have done it. I'm not really in the mood to discuss that, but I kind of agree that a few of the topics that were discussed on draft night said kind of, I mean, is this actually more where she should be because she was one of the last, she was one of the last in the state-based drafts picks when it came to it before we went to the national draft where you could go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, I think if we didn't have the compensation, because obviously you had the Port Adelaide ones, you had, the Hawthorn ones, Sydney one, like it was that last group of clubs that came in that were able to get some compensation picks in, and then of course you had like the other Northern Academy ones that are already there, and then you just had the upside too, which is the reason from the available open pool ones that she was picked. At the end of the day, I think she's probably, well, she wouldn't be pick one if everyone was available, because obviously that was the Lauren Young draft as well. So like there were a lot of very good players who were already assigned to go to different states. South Australia had a ridiculous crop that year. Yeah,
Mhm.
there were so many players that I think she probably would have gone later in the first round if all things been uh, realistic. And then if you sort of look at that and then work out, well, there's this and that. Um, she's only played the 8 games over the 2 years and hasn't really come on, which obviously is she's still a tall, still young. You expect her to
Mhm.
develop it probably in a few years, which is what she's seeing. The fact that obviously Kate Sheila is going to retire soon, Emma King's going to retire soon. They're not getting any younger, so she sees it not necessarily as coming in next year, but the year after and beyond will be the one where she really goes and does things. So I think at the end of the day, clubs just weren't going to take the risk, really. Like at the
Mhm.
end, like, they don't know. There's the draft was good enough that they could pick up players that could do it. And why have a player on your list that doesn't want
Doesn't
to
want to
play for
be
you at the
there.
end of the
Yep.
day? That's at the end of the day, that's what it is. And it's not like she's a needle mover at the moment
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, she wasn't playing for the Dogs. So
Yep.
it's not like it was a Ali Blackburn or someone like that that
Yep.
moved that they're like, wow, this player is one of the best in the competition. Like she's very good. She has potential, but she's not one that I think clubs would be clambering over without having the important data they need. So it wasn't too surprising. I was sort of expecting her to go to the Roos, and there are only a couple other clubs that had put their interest forward, and Hawthorn was one of them, and they didn't have a pick before then. So it
Yep.
was really up to Brisbane, and they weren't going to use their high picks on her. So, yeah, it wasn't a surprise on the night that she ended up going where they were expecting her to go.
Yeah, it was just quite the interesting discussion the entire time because I know Brisbane had a pick around there and there was talks would Brisbane defy and I kind of agreed that they weren't going to waste a draft pick on a player that really didn't that really she had made her mind up that's where she wanted to go. So I kind of want to jump down. There's a couple more and then we can kind of go off and talk a little bit others, but some fun stories towards the end. I mean, only 60 picks altogether, but you have let's talk about another great story and that's Maya Deer, the Hawthorne draft pick at 56. I mean, this is a cross coder. is this a little bit of too much sentimental mood for Hawthorne, or is this something that could maybe turn out to be quite the decent pick for Hawthorne, bringing in a father-daughter with the connection with Kalsha with the men's?
I mean, I'd say the answer is yes to both. I definitely think clearly, like if you're looking at someone who can produce now, there are others on the board that would be better to come in and perform. Like, there's no way to beat around the bush. She doesn't. She's been obviously training with them without having that competitive experience, like on field per se. It's a great story. Sometimes you need that, and obviously we know that the Deer family and how ingrained in the Hawthorn culture they are. Um, at the end of the day, it is pick 58. If she'd been pick 15, I think a lot of people would have been like, well, hang on. But at the end of the day, it's pick 58. It's not one that is, you're really gambling too much. It's a low
Mhm.
risk, high reward selection. So at the end of the day, yeah, that they can kind of bring her in. And if she doesn't develop, it's pick 58. But she obviously has that strength and experience through basketball. And I think she's someone who they're going to back to develop. And yeah, I don't think there's any loss for them in doing so. And yeah, if they get a really positive story out of it, and if she does become something, then it becomes an even better story. So I don't think there's any negatives on their end in terms of what they could have got or what they lost type thing. So I think for them, there's only positives, and it's just a matter of how much of a positive it becomes for them.
Yeah. And then to stay on the to stay on the father daughter is the next pick is a father daughter pick for Brisbane with Meg Lappin. So your thoughts on this one again? Are we is this a sentimental pick or is this a decent pickup for the Lions?
No, I think like I sort of earmarked that she'd go with their last selection. She's one of those that she's obviously got the footy experience. She's raw, still got areas to work on, but she's a really good athlete. Which, if you've got that and you can have a free hit at the end of the draft, which is what a new Brisbane would do, then there's no loss again for them. They're just like, look, it's pick 57. Like, she can really go up. She can kind of um, developed strongly. She's got the height. She's around that 180. She's really good in the air, competitive, got great speed for a player of her height. Few other areas, fundamentals she could iron out, but that's always going to happen with the late picks. And yeah, I think like the clubs always love a good father daughter or father son. Like it's a great story, and I think it's great sentimental, but also I think she's sort of done enough to warrant a late selection. She's shown enough throughout her junior career that maybe there's something there, and that's why she's gone with their last pick.
Yep. And then I want to discuss this because this has to be the steal of the draft, and that's pick 59, St. Kilda, Karis Daddario, the Swan District's mid. I mean, this is almost criminal that she's gone this late. I mean, St. Kilda isn't this is an absolute this is the steal of the draft in my personal opinion.
Yeah, that was definitely surprising that she was still on the board. I actually forgot she hadn't been taken on the night because you just assumed, oh yeah, she's gone up
I
somewhere
thought the
there. And then
same
when
I
they made
thought
her
the
name
same
out,
thing when I heard her name. I was like, wait, she didn't. Oh my gosh, seriously?
yeah, it's pretty crazy given she was touted as a first rounder. I thought she'd probably end up actually around that Mia Russo pick, to be honest, around that 20 selection. I thought she might go there. She's really unique. And what I love is the fact that she fits a perfect need for St Kilda. Her
Hmm.
best strength is being able to read the ball off hands at stoppages. And that's been St Kilda's biggest issue over the years, being able to win the ball through clearance. Once they've got possession from that initial touch, they've been very good at getting it forward. But the issue is getting that initial touch. They're often losing that first possession, and she is as good as anyone at winning that first possession. So for me, that is the perfect club for her to go to. And yeah, I think she's going to prove a lot of people wrong. She's someone who's had her injury issues over the years. She had a really good season this year, won WA's MVP, made All Australian, really good talent. So I think, yeah, what St Kilda did was really great. And to get her at that selection, again, just crazy, like way too late.
Yeah, it just shows you how talented this group is. It's going to be so much fun. So I'll have my Homer moment. So the Swans bring in all three academy players with Alex Neyland, Madeline Quinn, and Molly Thomas. So for my Swans, people that are following this, run me through these because as you said, Alex Nealon is I mean she is a Taylor Swift clone. She's a Taylor Harris clone. She flies for everything, great in the air. And then the other two, I'm interested because I haven't heard as much about them, but I know Madeline Quinn, a young developing ruck with a ton of talent, and Molly Thomas, a midfielder that kind of came a little bit out of nowhere for me personally because she was not on your draft guide.
Yeah, no, that's it. She was probably just outside that, which is like, yeah, obviously Thomas. We'll just start with, I guess, Nayland, who, a lot's been spoken about her, elite athlete, really, really good at basically everything, just has to iron out her kicking, but everything else she's basically got. Did her ACL at the end of 2023, so she missed her 2024 season. And then came back in. I was watching the Academy series between Swans, Giants, and the AFL Sydney and Canberra squads at the start of the year, and she was absolutely fantastic. Like she caught the eye. She was a clear player that I'm like, wow, this kid's got something special, and put her in the first round as a bit of a bolter, and then she just kept bolting from there. She's played at both ends, which is crucial. Mostly played her junior career as a defender, came in as a forward this year, and really showed what she was capable of. But just a competitor, really quick, really strong in the air, just clunks everything that goes in her direction, which is really great. And yeah, massive, massive upside, one of the highest upside in the draft. So she's a fantastic pick. Quinn, yeah, she's one that I think has always been touted as pretty high up. It was always going to be tricky because being a ruck and around that 187 kind of height, she's still growing into her body in terms of size, like strength, but she had a really good year when she did play for UTS Bats. She showed she could play forward. Her contested marking is probably what stands out compared to a lot of the other developing rucks. She can take a good grab, so that's something that Nayland and Quinn both have in their repertoire. She's someone like that. Her kicking's really come along this year, which is good. She's not a massive accumulator, but she does impact the game really well when she does have it. And I think that, yeah, she'll be one for the future to learn, as you said earlier, under Morfitt, and then probably start as a forward, then develop into that ruck forward role. Um, and then Thomas is more you just, I guess, developing type, late pick, a fair bit more to work on compared to the others, as you would expect. She's a left footer. And she moves really well through the midfield, can play forward as well. So she's got a few different avenues. I think ideally, obviously, the Swans had the eye on the three we've mentioned with Yearbury as well, but Thomas was clearly in the mix as that fourth player. And once they were in that range with the pick, she was the one they went for. We sort of spoke about Grace Parsons, who missed out. But clearly having two talls to get a third one was probably a bit too much. Thomas is then the next best from a midfield perspective, and I really like what she does. She's one that in terms of a defensive pressure, she's really good, got great speed, clean hands, good decision maker, um, just tidying up some of her kicking at times. But it comes from the fact that she's a left footer, but a right hander. And she's even spoke, which is very unique, which I haven't actually heard before someone speak about when I've interviewed him, saying that she has to continue to learn her ball drop off her left hand because it's a non-dominant hand onto her dominant foot, which is tricky because clearly trying to drop the ball from your right hand onto your left foot ain't going to work. So
Mhm.
it's something that she's been really developing. And yeah, I think she's got a lot of stuff that can help her become a very good player in a long time. But she's still that bit raw. And I think coming through the academy, they've seen what she can do. They want to put their faith in them and continue to develop, which will be really good.
Yeah, it'll definitely be fun on that one. So, and just I want to I want to leave it up to you. Who's a player in this draft? I'll kind of leave it open that you're looking forward to seeing next year. Just let's take out let's not in the first round. My usual my round two and on that you could definitely see starting round one next year in the AFLW.
Yeah, so obviously there's quite a few, but for me, Carlton getting Taylor McMillan at pick 34 is nuts. She was someone I think I rated 5 or thereabouts in the end. Like she was genuinely like that. to the fact she slid that low, I'd say it's probably just because of her size compared to some of the other inside mids. But geez, she's got basically everything, and she's going to prove a lot of people wrong in the future. I think she's going to be absolutely fantastic. So I think she's going to start very early on. She should be in the round one team for me. You've obviously look at Geelong. Bowering will start. Renee Morgan should be early. She's ready made to go. Maya Louvel Finn's one I've been huge on for getting at St Kilda as well. She and Daddario obviously should start pretty early. They're players that are ready to go right now. And then for Collingwood, one who's probably a little more raw, but I think will start due to the need is Josie Bamford. I think she'll start early on because she's already going to be the best ruck on Collingwood's list because the others are obviously more forwards who are filling in. So I think she's going to start pretty early on. And I think Collingwood will play a lot of the kids. And of course, you then have all the Gold Coast and Giants kids who will probably play early on, particularly the higher picks, because clearly they're, down the bottom of the ladder and they've got the talent that they'll need to develop to fast track their rise up the ladder, really.
Hmm. So, and then as per usual, we always end. We always one of the last questions that I have is let's look into it because I know in your draft guide you do 26 for 26. Who are we looking at in 2026 as being those top of the draft boards that we should be keeping an eye on going into next year?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I did have a conundrum when it came to picking who I had at number one, and at the end of the day, I just went with a kid that was a balance of what they'd produced and what they could produce, and that was Bailey Martin at Oakley. Realistically, she kicked 42 goals in 10 games, which is about 15 more than any other kid's done. And a lot of them have played full season, so she only played 10 games. Had hauls of 7 and 9, ridiculous player. Went to Caulfield Grammar, like where she played school footy, and they had a designated tagger for each third of the ground for her because one player couldn't just go with her. They just swapped over and basically tagged her full ground. She'd take kickouts, go into the stoppages, go forward. Like she's just an incredible talent, athletic, 176. She's going to do a lot of damage. So she's one. And the crazy thing is, her goal kicking accuracy is her big improvement, and she still kicked 42 goals in 10 games. She could have kicked 70. That's the kind of crazy numbers we're talking about. And then you've got Emma Charlton, who's another one. I think she's just your rolled gold, whatever the equivalent of 200 game player is, that's her. She's ready to go. Very few flaws. You know what you're going to get out of her. She's fantastic. Obviously, sister of TR. Adelaide getting Gold Coast pick next year. I think she'd definitely be one they eye off. And
Mm,
and the one who I think other one from South Australia, same team, South Adelaide, is Taya Maxwell, who
yep.
I am shocked that more people aren't talking about her. But I also think because she got injured, she's kind of been under the radar for a lot of people who follow, say, the champ. She got injured in the first game. She is crazy good. Like she is out of this world good. Just on traits alone, like she can kick both sides of her body 50 meters. She's an elite kick. Mobile for 184. And speaking to Jess Bates, she'd mentioned about how Taya was the strongest player she's ever gone up against at the stoppage. And she was only 16. So to think what she'd be at 18, 19, like she's bonkers. So I think if she'd played the champs, I think she'd probably be that pick one spot. But yeah, she just needs a full year. But yeah, South Adelaide have two of them, which is crazy. And yeah, it's a very good draft next year, very deep, very good first round, lots of top end talent. Trying to pick 26 for 26, it probably had about 35, which is pretty good. I think this will be the second best draft behind, obviously, the super draft of 2024. So I think this one will be the next best. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch. Yeah, I know both Emma and Taya were fantastic for South Adelaide during their underage seasons. It would be fantastic to see how it goes. Cannot wait. As per usual, I enjoy it. Pete, as per usual, you are fantastic. It is so much fun to sit down and talk women's footy because I know it is a huge passion of yours. I know this year you had the Herculean tact of doing all of the full page profiles of each of these players. And as you said previously, it was quite a task, but I truly appreciated it. The work was incredible as per usual. I know that the work is never done because you've got next year and the year after that to start looking to it. But again, I mean, just incredible work that you do with Rookie Me Central and all of the people at Rookie Me Central because you guys, these draft cards are incredible.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, thanks for that. Don't like. I mean, it's one of those things that it does take a lot of time, and yeah, as I mentioned to you, I think halfway through I was regretting doing full profiles on all the combine invites because there were 91. But nah, look, it turned out really well and everything like that. And you're always trying to work out double check and things like that. So it is very tough for the women's too because there's not a lot who do it in the space, like from a draft angle. Like
Mhm,
obviously Sarah Black does great work with features and things like that. But for most of the year, from a pure draft angle, it's incredibly difficult because most of the time you're just kind of going off your gut and what you're hoping and
mhm,
what you sort of see, and there isn't a lot to go on. So, yeah, it generally works out. Like you're pretty around the money, and it does come at the end of the year show that. But yeah, look, it's really great to sort of get to this stage of the year because you know you're able to have a bit of a breather at least,
yep.
and then yeah, get ready to go again because the first testing event's at the end of Jan. So then I'm back into it for the next year and seeing how we go all over again.
No, and also have to compliment you because I know that you were Rookie Me Central was mentioned several times on the broadcast. I mean, how awesome is that your work is on Fox Footy and being shown during their draft coverage, and which I thought was absolutely fantastic. I had to giggle a couple of times that I heard that I kept hearing them mention you, and how awesome is that your work is showcased on the Fox Footy coverage.
Yeah, no, they approached us about a week out from the draft or so and sort of asked if it was all good to use some of the stuff we had, and we said that'd be great. And we weren't really sure how it was going to come out or how they were going to do it, but it was quite a surprise on draft night. We didn't know they were going to actually mention us by name. I thought they might just have a little tiny text somewhere or
Hmm.
a logo or something like that. Like we weren't really sure what was going to happen. So yeah, definitely full credit and appreciate that from Fox and everything along those lines. So yeah, I yeah really enjoyed it, and yeah, it was definitely good to hear that hard work and yeah come about. So
Yeah,
for
that was
sure.
absolutely incredible. Well, as per usual, Pete, fantastic, fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the AFLW Draft and Trade Show. Again, unfortunately, now the competitive footy is done. All of the off-season stuff really kind of takes a break now. The cricket kind of takes over, which I mean, as we are recording, we are just after the end of the Ashes as Australia has retained. I did it again. I'm sorry, but I can't not smile at that a little bit because I know many of my Aussie friends are super over the moon that are cricket fans. So, but we will let cricket take over, and then we'll be back with footy again very, very soon when it comes to it. But keep an eye out again, my off-season supporter series. I know several have gone out, and I know so many people are enjoying them. I have got some incredible stories to share with you, some incredible women that I'm going to be sitting down and talking with, hoping to do some other things as well. I've got a few irons in the fire, going to try to hopefully get a few players on the podcast to chat so we can get ourselves to March as per usual. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the end of the podcast. And again, we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.